My next guest leads one of the fastest growing Catholic populations in the world. He's the Archbishop of Manila, and at 56, one of the youngest cardinals in the Church. He was just appointed by Pope Francis as one of the 3 presidents of the upcoming Extraordinary Synod of Bishops for the family in October. Now, I sat down with him recently at Catholic University of America, and he spoke candidly about the focus of that synod, and he reacts to the Boston Globe report that he was, quote, open to considering the arguments for allowing Catholics who divorce and remarry without an annulment a declaration from a church court that the first marriage was invalid to receive communion and the other sacraments, end quote. Here's my exclusive interview with Cardinal Luis Tagle. It must be amazing for you to be back here at the Catholic University of America. You did your doctoral work in sacred theology here. What did you learn? What did you take from the experience and the time spent here in the United States?
No, it was, first of all, I did not plan on going to further studies. When my bishop called me after ordination to the priesthood that I would one day, maybe after 3 years of pastoral ministry in the Philippines, be sent to further studies, I objected. I said, enough of studies.
Wait a minute.
I said, no. I said, I'm not interested anymore. I've had so many years of studies. But it was a mission to be sent to study. And I pleaded with him if I could just pursue my master's and doctorate in the Philippines. And he said, no, it would be good to go to some other place. And I experienced a widening of horizon. That's one thing. In my own person, I felt like I understood myself better as a Filipino. I understood the faith better and the richness of the Catholic tradition. I saw how a church like the church in the United States grapples with concerns that I did not fully understand at that time, but it expanded my perspective, and I'm very happy that I studied the Second Vatican Council.
Yes,
focused on Pope Paul VI.
And his collegiality.
Collegiality.
This question of collegiality and Paul VI, soon to be blessed
Beatified, yes.
Paul VI. How does that vision of collegiality compare with what we're seeing under Pope Francis?
I think Pope Francis is taking it seriously. Because collegiality is really communion. The communion within the universal church.
What does that mean? Explain it to people who don't understand this
Communion,
concept.
I think, can be explained this way. On an objective level, wherever you find the church, there are common elements that we hold together. So in common communion, like, of course, we have the one God, the same God, the same Holy Spirit, the same baptism, the same Word of God, the same Eucharist, the same apostolic ministry, the same call to mission. So I may be in India, I may be in Bangladesh, I may be in Germany, and it's the same Word of God that is proclaimed. It's the same baptism, it's the same Eucharist. So on that level, we are one community. But also on the more subjective level and on the structural level also, there are avenues for us to be brothers and sisters and for us bishops to be co-responsible with and for each other. There is no church that I can consider or should consider as alien to me. I should not say, I am the Archbishop of Manila. And so my concern is only Manila. Washington, D.C., oh no, that's too far away from us, from our concerns. No. Because of collegiality, I consider every bishop as my brother. We belong to one community of bishops, and I will try to do my best in Manila, not only for my sake and for the sake of the Archdiocese of Manila, but for the sake of all my brother bishops. And their concerns are my concerns too. Like, I'm very much worried when the kidnapping of these girls in Nigeria happened, and providentially, the secretary of the Apostolic Nuncio in Manila is from Nigeria. So I asked him, no, so how is Cardinal so-and-so?
Yeah.
This must be bearing hard on him, so heavily on him. No? So this opens up for me a whole vista of ministry also, not for individual gain.
How does this factor into decision-making? And do you see a shift in Pope Francis's approach as opposed to that of his predecessors?
No, not really. Pope Francis, as a new pope, the first year that I've interacted with him, has been very much interested in knowing firsthand what is happening in the local churches. And that is in order to strengthen the role of the Church of Rome as the center of charity and communion. So paying attention to the local realities does not negate the role of the center. It will enhance the role of the center, which is to make love, charity, especially missionary charity, circulate.
I want to talk about that because you and your church are so responsible for exporting priests to Europe, to the United States, to a lot of the Northern Hemisphere.
Yes.
You have 7,000 priests roughly in the Philippines. You have 85 million Catholics.
Yes.
Is there a crisis going on? I mean, I know it's a circulation of love by sending your best and brightest to other countries, but are you facing something of a crisis internally?
Well, that has always been the situation, by the way. We have been used to having one priest for a big parish. So in terms of crisis, if it is a crisis, then we have gotten used to the crisis.
It's not commonplace
new.
now.
Yeah, it's commonplace. It's commonplace. And I think what saves us, though, is the fact that many of our priests are relatively young, and there is great participation on the part of the lay people. And that lessens a lot of the concerns and also the weight of ministry handled by the priests.
You, in your previous position, when you were the Bishop of Imus, you quadrupled, doubled, expanded vocations by an incredible number. Something, what was it, 27? And then you took it up to 140-something priests, 143 priests. How was that possible? How did you do that?
Well, I don't know.
I
did not plan on that. It's just that the fact that the diocese became a favorite destination of internal migrants, people from other parts of the country looking for jobs, and that part of the Philippines is blessed, with jobs, with opportunities, and so many people went there. And this is one thing good about migrants. When they are uprooted from their places of origin, they look for home. And the next best home for them is the parish, the church. And I see that not only internally in the Philippines, but also externally. That's why Filipino migrant workers, in Europe especially, they are the ones who keep the churches filled and alive. I celebrated Mass in the Duomo, in the Cathedral of Milan. Cardinal Scola invited me for some conferences, and he scheduled a Mass on a Sunday for the Filipino community, predominantly for them, but it's not only for them.
Right.
20,000 attended. 20,000 Filipinos attended.
My goodness.
And I thought the Duomo was packed. And after the Mass, the Master of Ceremony said, "You might want to greet the people who were not able to enter." So I said, "Sure." So we did this procession. When I got to the door of the Duomo, I almost fainted. Because the whole piazza and the streets around were filled with another 11,000 Filipinos screaming, asking for blessing. And one of the canons of the cathedral said, "Look, Your Eminence, this is the future of the church here in Milan." I said, "No, not just the future. They are the present."
The present, yes.
It is now.
Exactly.
It is
Look
now.
at them. Isn't
Yeah.
that amazing?
Yeah, and that happened in my former diocese. There was an influx of migrants. They come to church, they feel at home in church, and their children.
And there's a vibrancy there in their practice.
And then before you know it, these young gentlemen are asking, "What can we do to be of help? How do I enter the seminary?" And
you had an idea or two for them.
Yeah, yes. And I also made sure, maybe this is my contribution, whenever there are big feasts, patronal feasts, confirmation, I always include in my homilies, you know, sometimes in the form of a joke. You know, I always remind people, especially the young, to consider the vocation to the priestly life and religious life as one of the options open to them.
I want to talk about some of the difficulties and challenges we're facing, not only in your local church, but universal. There was a reproductive health law that you fought vigorously against, I know, because what it requires is the government to provide contraceptives all over the country. You opposed it. It's now on hold, I believe, but it has passed. It has passed. There were a few of your confreres, bishops, who wished or threatened to excommunicate some of the politicians involved and even the president. You did not agree with that. Why not?
Well, first of all, I am very cautious about the language of excommunication, because the church is primarily a sacrament of salvation and not of damnation. So I believe excommunication happens in very strict circumstances, and you have to judge levels of culpability on a personal level. So but you know, in fact, when that was clarified, the bishops who were alleged to have been part of that pronouncement, they were surprised, because they said that in their interviews they did not threaten anyone. You know, they were asked. No, some of them were asked, "Isn't abortion a cause or a reason for excommunication?" And they explained how some contraceptives are abortifacients. You know? So it's in that context. So it's not a blanket, you know, threat to supporters of the law.
Now, Pope Francis recently appointed you as one of the co-presidents of this upcoming synod, a very important synod on the family, taking place in Rome this fall, and it'll continue into the next year.
This next year.
You have been quoted in interviews, most recently in the Boston Globe, as saying you are open to hearing arguments as to whether Catholics can be divorced and remarried without annulments. Why?
I was quoted as saying
John Allen quotes you as saying that you were open to arguments where a Catholic might be married, divorced and remarried without an annulment. Are you?
Oh, I don't recall. I don't recall the conversation focusing on that. No, what I recall of the conversation is this: that when we had that conversation, we just came from the consistory where Cardinal Casper gave a whole presentation, and the discussion that ensued, you know, opened for me personally a whole range of concerns and issues that I was ignorant of. So I said, wow, there's so much to learn, especially now that I'm a president-delegate. No, so I am open to all the perspectives that could help us shed light on the issue.
Do you think, with your study and your understanding of theology, certainly far surpassing mine, Is it possible to envision a policy that would allow Catholics to divorce and remarry without an annulment, given the church teaching and Christ's teaching on the indissolubility of marriage? Is it possible?
I just came from a meeting of the preparatory committee for the synod. The following things are very clear. The teaching of Jesus and the teaching of the church will not be changed. No. What people are looking at right now, especially the canonists, is this. No. How could canon law and its procedures, reflect more clearly, the teaching of Jesus Christ, and the teaching of the church? Because some people are claiming that the canonical procedures are too rigid, and also some are even asking, do the canonical prescriptions, are they clear about the doctrinal basis? Or is the legal canonical path taking its own way quite separately from the doctrinal dimension? The other thing is, it also became quite clear that every, let's call it, failed marriage is quite unique. It's difficult to say all, marriages that ended up in divorce, because when you deal with cases and you deal with persons, individuals' lives, then you have to.
But that's the annulment process, correct? I mean, that's why you have the annulment process.
Yes,
so is that what the focus of this is? Reforming the annulment process?
That has become a big way. So doctrinally, how can you change the word of the Bible or the words of Jesus?
But Cardinal Casper seems to be suggesting something akin to that, though, in that presentation, which I know was hostilely received by a lot of the cardinals present.
But he responded to that.
Yes.
He said he was talking there as a theologian who did a lot of historical. In fact, in the meeting yesterday, there was another perspective that came up. The canonical tradition of the Eastern Rite churches.
Right.
How they handle so-called divorces and second marriages. But of course, the synod will not focus only on this situation.
Well, we see it's the media coverage of this seems to focus on.
For example, in the Philippines, we don't have divorce.
Right.
So if the whole synod is about divorce and
you need to get off the president's council.
Maybe just call a synod for countries with divorce. But we have families where the couples are separated, not because they don't want to live with one another, but they're de facto separated by poverty, by migration. It's not anger towards one another that made them decide to separate, but it is the love for each other and for the children. That's a totally different situation.
Are you concerned that a combination of certain individuals and the media are hijacking this synod and changing it into something it was never envisioned to be?
That's always a danger, because people have their own interests and they have their own agenda, so they express in their form of reporting some sort of a support for their agenda. But I sit on the preparatory committee of the synod, and I tell you, the communion of the divorced remarried is just one item among many items. There are at least 8 major topics, and that is just one. And they always say this is a North Atlantic North Atlantic concern. When you go to Africa, when you go to Asia, and for us, for example, because of migration, the fabric of the family is really tested. And so we are asking for serious pastoral care for migrants so that they could remain faithful to their spouses left at home or to their children.
I want to wrap up here.
Yeah.
So many people during the last conclave stopped me on the street, especially one young man whom you met in passing. You may not even remember this. He felt he had a calling to the priesthood. He asked, I think, to come speak with you for a moment. You were crossing the piazza, and you sat with him and spoke to him for 20 minutes or so. And he enthusiastically told me about this moment, this encounter with you.
Really?
And he said he felt it was decisive in his considering this vocation seriously, and almost a message for him personally.
Yeah.
How aware are you of those moments? And do you go out of your way to make time for people you encounter? I'm sure you were on your way to something else at that time.
Yeah, I usually try to stop, when people want to ask questions, and if the questions are really essential or important, then I give them time.
People say you are the Asian Pope Francis.
Oh my! Pope Francis is Pope Francis.
How do you react to that?
I smile. I don't take it seriously. I mean, I know Pope Francis. We worked together for 3 years in the Council of the Synod. No, he is his person. I am not. I am not him. But if there are. I worked longer with Cardinal Ratzinger, and so.
Well, I think what they're talking about is your way of life. You lead a simple way of life. You are mingling with the public. You're available to people. One can look at your face and see the joy of your faith. I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah, maybe that. Well, if it is that, then I'm happy. That,
well, good. Well, we're happy too. Your Eminence, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you.